Nailing the timings on your wedding day is so crucial, I cannot tell you. And the amount of times that my couples just don't realise some of the things and some of the key timings in their day, it can throw your whole timeline. So let's have a breakdown today of how a wedding timeline should look from the ceremony through to the first dance. Let's do this. Hello lovely couples and welcome back to my channel. I'm Lauren, wedding planner and owner of Bluebird Creative. I provide a weekly dose of wedding planning goodness for the modern couple, as well as digital downloads to help you plan your wedding. So if you haven't already, guys, make sure you subscribe to the channel and don't forget to follow me over on Instagram and TikTok at Bluebird_creative. Right guys, wedding day timeline. Honestly, it's a frequently asked question and I know that it can kind of feel confusing. And as you're going through your planning, you're like, I need to know the timings. I don't know how long to allocate here. What do I do? And then my clients will come to me for coordination, tell me their timings, and I have to come back and go, we need to change those because you haven't thought of this or you haven't added in that. So let's break it down. Let's get into it. So we're going to start at the wedding ceremony. So for example, you're having a 2 p.m. wedding ceremony and you are getting married in one location throughout the day. So we are getting married and having a civil ceremony at one particular venue where the reception is being hosted as well, and you're getting ready on site, so there's no transport involved. I might do another version of this as well because I think it's helpful because not everybody falls into this particular category. But here's example one. So the ceremony is at 2 p.m. and you've got ready on site. So I would say that you need to be in your dress, brides, by absolutely no later, or getting into your dress at 1 p.m, an hour before the ceremony, okay? You need to be allowing enough time for any touch-ups that need to be made, for photos beforehand, for any first looks that you're having, as well as meeting with the registrar before the ceremony. So your partner will probably meet with the registrar roughly half an hour before the ceremony, and then you will meet with them 15 minutes before the ceremony. So you need to be dressed, ready to go, and the time just flies. So get into that dress an hour before the ceremony. This is obviously bearing in mind that there's no transport, you're getting married on site. If you are getting ready in a different location, then you obviously need to add on and allow extra time for travel to the venue as well. So please do bear that in mind. You do not want to be late for your ceremony, especially if it's a civil ceremony, because the registrar, they will not wait for you. They will have a certain amount of weddings booked that day that they have to make at particular times. So if you're late, it's not their problem. They will go to the next wedding, or they will cut your ceremony short and take out any personalisation that you've put in. So please do bear that in mind when you're getting ready. Don't be late. So we're getting ready. We're getting into our dresses now before the ceremony. Anyway, ceremony is at 2 p.m. Your ceremony will be roughly 30 minutes if you're having a civil ceremony. So the ceremony is going to end at 2:30. Are you having a confetti shot? If the confetti shot is whilst you're walking back down the aisle, that's absolutely fine. We don't really need to allocate any extra time for that. Guests will have confetti on their chairs. That's really simple. If you want a confetti shot outside, then obviously your venue manager, your wedding coordinator, your bridal party and so on, they will need to get everybody ready for the confetti shot. So I would allow up to 15 minutes for this to happen. Just plot that into your timeline. It shouldn't take 15 minutes, but wedding days are like herding cats, and guests are just all excited and they're seeing someone that they haven't seen in ages and they're chatting and you're like, we need to move you through to here. So allow 15 minutes for the confetti shot to happen, because you're going to walk down the aisle. We're going to take you off to the side just to have a moment, celebrate just the two of you. We're going to get all your guests out of the ceremony space. We're going to hand out the confetti. We're going to get them lined up, and then we can do the confetti shot. So 15 minutes into your timeline for that. Then your drinks reception starts. Now, I've done videos on the drinks reception, so I will link that up top for you. But my golden number for a drinks reception is 1 hour and 30 to 2 hours. No more, guys, no less. Anything less than that is very short, and you'll find that you won't have enough time to socialise, to mingle, to get round and chat to most people. Your photographer will find that very tricky, especially if you want some lovely photos of your guests, or if you're having any family shots, or if you're having couple shots as well. So Try not to go less than an hour and a half. It makes things quite complicated. And then no more than 2 hours, because people will get bored. And if you are having alcohol at your wedding, people will get drunk. So that is the window, hour and a half to 2 hours for your drinks reception. Now, the next bit is where people do not consider in their timeline, and that is getting your guests from the drinks reception and sat down for the wedding breakfast. People just go, okay, so the drinks reception is starting at 2:45 because we've had the 2 p.m. ceremony to 2:30, 2:30 to 2:45 for the confetti shot, 2:45 the drinks reception starting, and they will go, okay, well, we're doing an hour and a half drinks reception, right, fine. So that's 2:45 to 4:15, and then it's the wedding breakfast at 4:15. No, it's not. The caterers cannot be bringing food out and placing it on tables at 4:15 because nobody currently is in that space. They are all in the drinks reception space. We need to get them in to the wedding breakfast space. And again, herding cats, my friends, herding cats. We need to get them in and through. It can take a while. Now, depending on how many guests you have, it's obviously going to take longer or shorter, depending on where in the wedding venue your drinks reception is in comparison to the wedding breakfast location. Again, it could take longer. Is it an open, easy space to get into? Is it down a corridor? And therefore, is it going to bottleneck as guests go in? So these are all things to consider. Are you having a receiving line? I have to say, I've had one couple in all my years of wedding planning do a receiving line. My couples don't tend to do it, but I would allow even more time for a receiving line. It takes ages, but we're not allocating a receiving line in this timeline today because I don't have people that do it. So I'm assuming that you're my ideal client. You're not doing a receiving line. You're just having your guests go through. So you could allocate 20 minutes. Some venues will go, you only need 15 minutes, but I will always allocate a minimum of 20 minutes because it just takes a while, and I think it's better to have slightly too much time than not enough time, and then all the timings completely run out of control for the rest of the day, because things usually go really well until people sit down for the wedding breakfast, and that's when the timings start to kind of go wrong. What you don't want is the timings to be wrong going into the wedding breakfast. That's a no-no, big no-no. So minimum 20 minutes, I would say. If you've got 60 to 80 guests, 20 minutes is great. If you've got 80 to 100 guests, you could probably still do 20 minutes. You might want to consider half an hour. And again, that depends on location of the drinks reception to the wedding breakfast room. Anything over 100 guests, you definitely want to be looking at half an hour. And again, considering if the space is easy to go through, is there enough space through the doors, or are you going to bottleneck? And is there going to end up being a queue, for example? So allowing enough time for everyone to take their seats. Now, what we always tell our couples is that during that time, so you've got at least you've got roughly half an hour, have your photographer take you off and do your couple shots at that point. That way you're not being pulled away from the whole of your drinks reception, having photos just the two of you, having photos with your friends and family and so on. And you're going to be the last ones to go in for the wedding breakfast. That's the likelihood of it. So go and have your photos then whilst everyone's making their way through. Once they're all seated, you can then be announced into the room as the new Mr. and Mrs. or the newlyweds and take your seats. And at that point, you decide, do you want to have speeches or do you want to have and go straight into dinner service? Either way, depending on how many guests you have, but I'm going to go along with the fact that you're having a 3-course plated dinner and you're going to have speeches for traditionally 3 people, so I'm going with that. I always allocate 30 minutes for speeches. I say to my couples, it might go over. Try and speak to the people that are doing speeches. Anything longer than that and people start to get bored. Okay, so remember, it's not just about you guys, your guests will get bored. I've seen it and it makes me sad. Okay, so 30 minutes is a really, really good length of time for speeches. You might say, actually, no one's overly confident in speaking. It's going to be 15 minutes. That's fine. Allocate that in and allocate roughly an hour and a half to 2 hours for your sit-down meal. Again, depending on the amount of guests that you've got. And your caterer will actually tell you how long they need. So go off their timings for that as well. Then after you've had the speeches and the dinner, you obviously, it's very much dependent on what your plans are for the rest of the day. For example, if the space where you've had your wedding breakfast needs to be turned around, ready for the evening, hopefully there's a breakout space in another room that you can go into. So what I would suggest is allowing a 1 hour to 1.5 hour cocktail hour at that point, that you go into the other space whilst the main room is being turned around for the evening. Then everybody will come back through and you will have your cake cutting, for example, and your first dance. So if we work out the timings here, on the spot, we've got a 2 p.m. ceremony to 2:30. We've got a 2:30 to 2:45 confetti shot. We have got a drinks reception from 2:45 to 4:15, and then we're allowing half an hour for our guests to be seated. So we're going 4:15 to 4:45. That's when the couple are being announced in and sitting down. So the dinner will be served at about 4:55 because it allows them 10 minutes to get everybody's drinks poured, and then they will start service. So service will start at about 5 to 5, and speeches will be at, let's say, 6:30 till 7 p.m. 7 p.m. guests will be asked to make their way through to another space for an hour's turnaround and for a cocktail hour, and then at 8 o'clock they'll be called in for the cutting of the cake and then straight into the first dance. There you go, guys. That is how I would work out those timings. If you have a different setup and you are getting married, for example, at a church, or you're having something completely different, then let me know in the comments below, and I'd be more than happy to make another video on how a timeline would fit the different things that you're doing. So let me know, and if there's anyone that's doing something completely different, I'm happy to create a video and show you how timings would work for different scenarios. But anyway, I hope you found this video helpful, guys. Have an amazing week, and I will be back next week with some more wedding planning goodness.